And today we're going to talk about the various protections one can do before ceremony or just in general.
I suffered with obsessive compulsive disorder
Hmm.
or OCD. And back in the day, people didn't know what that was. Nowadays, I think most people are familiar with that acronym. And
And I thought it was interesting how when he explained it to us, he was positioning his different guides and protectors around the Maloka. And I wonder if the Ikaros, help to like how does he just use his mind to position them, because and when does he call those other spirits through those Ikaros? Hello, everybody. I am Rai, and I'm back here with Lisa for the second episode of Rise and Shine Shamanic Tonic. And today we're going to talk about the various protections one can do before ceremony or just in general,
any,
protections in everyday life to help with energy management.
hmm.
You want to add anything to that, Lisa?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, it just brings up a lot because to share a personal story, when I was young, I suffered with obsessive compulsive disorder
Hmm.
or OCD. And back in the day, people didn't know what that was. Nowadays, I think most people are familiar with that acronym and obsessive compulsive disorder. But back in the day, it wasn't on Family Circle magazine. Oprah wasn't talking about it. It just doctors didn't ask about it. And so I really suffered alone. There was one gal I met, a friend, and we realized that we both like sincerely suffered from it. Like a lot of people think maybe they have it if they have to double check that they lock the door before they leave. But true OCD is on a whole nother level. Like it can run your life. But it's for me at least, and I think for a lot of people suffering with that, it's a lot about protection.
Yeah.
It's yeah, and I did grow up in a Catholic environment, and it fortunately for me, it was not a real strict one. I didn't go to uh, Catholic school, so it was quite liberal. But still, there's a lot of ritual of in the church, and so that might play a part of it. My father had a very unstable childhood, and so as a father, he was very protective, and some of that probably rubbed off on me. But yeah, my number was 4. And so I would have to touch things 4 times, or sometimes do things 4 to the 4th power, and God forbid 4 to the 4th to the 4th to the 4th power.
Yeah.
And I had a prayer that I would say every night, which was, Dear God, please bless my mom, dad, me, and my brother. Please keep my mom, dad, me, and my brother safe from harm of any kind, type, assortment, or variation. Like I would have made a good lawyer because I had all these different, but I had to find 4 different ways to say that idea. And it really was about protection. Like I'd have to run to the window and see my dad's car before he turned the corner to ensure that he would come home safe that night. It was all about protection and safety. And but then I knew that this was not a healthy way to live. And at some point I got desperate, and I said that prayer again, but then I said, I have to give this up. It was a surrender, right? I have to surrender. And if it means that my mom, dad, me, or my brother should die, so be it. Like I was willing to
Wow.
sacrifice my life and the life of those I loved in order to overcome this obsession. And yeah, it worked. And guess what? My mom, dad, me, and my brother lived. I mean, my parents only passed recently. My brother's still alive. I'm still alive. So there was some delusion in it,
Yeah.
but at the same time, it was so powerful, this need to protect, and this, and it is an unsafe world for a child. We don't have control at an early age. So that was probably my way of feeling like I did have some control in the world, you know? Um, so it's a very interesting topic, this idea of protection.
Yeah, where do
And
you think that urge inside of you for protection, did something happen to you, you think, that triggered that, or was it just being a child in the world?
I think it was mostly being a child in the world. Like, I think my dad's cautionary nature maybe instilled this idea that bad things could happen, like you have to be so careful. But I've looked at profiles of people who have OCD, and I did fit a lot of it. And there's a spiritual element, like people with it tend to have been raised more religiously around ritual, to have a faith and intuition. Like, I did have dreams at an early age, and sometimes those played out. Like, so I was aware that there were things in the unseen that were real, that
Yeah.
could have a true effect. But I think that mostly it is the idea that um a child doesn't have much control in the world. Pretty much, I mean, your parents are dictating what happens. I think in terms of eating, and that's probably one reason I became a nutritionist, that's something that a child learns to have control over early on. Um, but and whole different topic, but that's part of the reason why so many women especially have eating disordered eating, because
Mm,
it's all about control issues, right? A lot of
yeah,
it is about control issues. And the gift, they say our darkest nights lead to our greatest gifts. And for me, like as a young mother, I wasn't a super young mother, but when I was first a mother, I did notice the difference between how I mothered and other mothers mothered, and I had really learned how to release control. And
yeah,
I that was to the benefit of my children, because just in life in general, I have a very good sense now of the serenity prayer, the things that we can control and the things we can't control. And that's just really cornerstone to living a well balanced life. And I think a lot of people, adults, still struggle with that.
yeah, yeah, I hear that. And I can relate to what you just shared in that when I was a child, I had a little bit of OCD too, where I don't know, I was watching all these shows on TV and I was having all these dreams. Like one time I had this dream where I was in a world where there's no people and there's this thing wearing this black jumpsuit and its face was all weird and mangled and it was chasing me. And I was watching things like Twilight Zone and Narnia, and I was so afraid of opening a door and walking through it and going into another dimension.
Mhm, mhm,
So my OCD, the way to protect myself from that is I had to somehow always open the door with my left hand, and I had to pray to God for protection before I opened that door. And it got so bad that, my parents started talking to me about, are you okay? You don't, why are you doing all these weird rituals before you're opening the door? And yeah, maybe it had to do it with safety, maybe because I grew up in a gang neighborhood where there's like shootings and helicopters going above every night. Somebody almost shot my mom while she was washing the dishes. And my dad was beating me all the time. It's just like a combination of lots of crazy things, and maybe I just needed to feel that safety. I think it's funny though because I was so afraid of going into these other dimensions, but practicing shamanism now, doing the drumming, we're sending our consciousness into other dimensions and realms. It's like, oh, I go to the upper world and I'll visit my guides, or I'll go to the lower world. Or, even during ceremony, we take these plant medicines. I mean, ayahuasca is a great example of that. During our shamanic initiation retreat, I take the medicine. I'm like off in some other, like in the cosmos, talking with the planets and the stars. And in that case, it's really beautiful. So the one thing I was afraid of, and I was trying to protect myself from, in a way, related to your story, I've surrendered, and that's is just what's happening now.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating. And I think what you said is true. I mean, you definitely grew up in a very unsafe environment in many different ways. And again, a child has few protections really of their own. And I think it is one way. And it is interesting that we both have grown into this work where ritual is very important
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
protection.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really like somewhere in there gaining the deep understanding of where it's really valuable and where it becomes kind of like a dis-ease.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
isn't really necessary and isn't really helpful. And I
Yeah.
do consider my healing from that because it was significant. And when it really became significant to me and I knew I had to change something. I got good grades, I was popular, whatever. Like people thought that I was just being cute sometimes. And I thought, well, better cute than crazy, right? Let them think I'm cute, just not crazy. But I knew I was in trouble when I was trying to control other people. And
Yeah.
like my brother, the typical like on the wall, I'd go dut 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 dut, and I would want him to do the dut dut back.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Sometimes to annoy me, he wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And it did, it drove me crazy. And then, like, when I had a boyfriend in high school, I remember him kissing me twice, and I wanted him to kiss me 4 times.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Yeah.
Like, you kiss me 2 more times. And then I thought, Lisa, you're in trouble because you cannot control other people.
Right. Right.
Because, this is like deep stuff. Um, so I was like, oh yeah, this isn't going to work. Like I'm really in trouble if I have to rely on other people to come through because you can't do that.
Yeah.
And so that's when I really just I was reading A Course in Miracles in high school.
Hmm.
And I just really just let it go. And it was kind of that simple surrender, although it was big in terms of surrendering even my own life,
Yeah. Yeah.
needing to die to get rid of this thing. And it worked. And but yeah, it is fascinating how ritual then is still a part of my life, but I have a better, mature understanding of its place.
Yeah.
And clearly that has happened for you as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
And I was thinking about what you just said about how you were trying to control things and you were trying to get things to happen like you were looking for, like, oh, I want to be kissed 4 times. And that's almost like wanting a synchronicity to happen. And what I found in my own life is once we surrender and we're more in flow and we're more in spirit, the synchronicities just happen on their own, and just, like seeing the numbers and having these things come into place,
Mhm.
like you're looking at the time, oh, it's 11:11. You look
Well,
at
and you
the
know
time, it's
what?
4:44.
Right. And
Yeah.
what that's bringing up for me is this subtle but powerful idea that when we were younger and you're doing the door a certain way and I'm doing my number 4 rituals,
Yeah.
we're giving ourselves, we're making ourselves God. We're making ourselves like what we
Interesting.
do is the protection. Whereas like you're saying, when we surrender and we release to the flow of spirit, it does show up, but now we're really releasing to the true God. I mean,
Yeah.
not that we don't have God within, but there's a big difference there, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's really interesting.
And I guess, and that's what we're doing now is we do our ritual, but we're doing it to invite in the spirits to do the work. Like we do the ritual to invite in the spirits to do the protection and the work. Whereas when I was young, it was really my actions that I believed were conferring the protective power. That's a big difference.
That's a huge difference. Yeah. Okay. That being said, we've got a list of the different protections that we had discussed before, and let's just go through the list and talk about how we've related to these different protections and how we've used them in the past. So the first one is soplar, what we learned at Aya Healing Retreats from Don Miguel. Do you want to open that up for us and just, go in and explain it?
Should I demonstrate? Shall
Yeah,
we?
yeah, I'll do it.
Well, this is mapacho, and it's used a lot in ceremony by the shamans, but also the participants are invited to work with mapacho as well. What is mapacho? Mapacho is pure indigenous tobacco grown on sacred land. So this mapacho is from Peru, where Ryan and I went to the Aya Healing Retreat Center. And initially, what you do, soplada, is to really give gratitude. It can be with words or often with a whistling sound, but that confers your intentions and appreciation for the mapacho. Or it could be for medicine, like if we were drinking medicine, we would soplada, right?
Yeah, and soplar, that literally means to blow, right? Is that
Yeah.
right? Or
Soplar. I have to look that up to be sure. Is it to blow? You probably looked it up,
yeah, I
right?
looked it up on Google and then the meaning came, and I think it said to blow. So I think it's that action of blowing smoke. And you're gonna demonstrate for us.
Yeah, so initially, like I would, oh, maybe they can't hear because of the sound thing. Um,
Yeah,
and
so what Lisa was doing is she was, and for those of you who are listening to this just on audio and not watching it off of a video, she had the mapacho in between her hands and she was blowing her intentions into the mapacho in her hands. And she's doing it right now. Yep.
mapacho in particular, it clears energies, which is protective on one level. It grounds, but it does specifically provide protection. So a lot of times mapacho itself is used for protection. And then what we do is a ritual in ceremony, but I'll do it, just any time that I feel called for protection, um, to clear the energies around me.
Okay, so Lisa is lighting the mapacho.
And then generally, so you don't inhale, it's more of a keeping the smoke within your mouth. It's really to clear energies, not to inhale, but 3 times down the front,
Hmm.
3 times to the left, usually over your hand, 3 times to the right, 3 times above. So I'll and then blowing it into your hand and then over the crown chakra. And I met someone recently who, because of his childhood experiences, does have a big issue with protection. So I offered him a few of the suggestions, that being one of them. And he did. He felt a difference. You're clearing energies away from you and providing a bit of a protective shield as you move forward. Oh, I forgot. Actually, before doing the crown, so down 3 in the front, 3 to the left, 3 to the right, kind of towards the back of your shoulder, and then 3 in front of you. And you're supposed to blow extra hard in front of you. And then the 3 over the head. So that is one way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I, during the time we were there in the jungle, I initially was resistant to using any type of tobacco products or smoke. You know, just because I had this really distorted relationship with tobacco, where every time I would go out drinking, I'd smoke it, and it reminded me of feeling sick later on. And then during the retreat, I had asked Mapacho to heal our relationship, and over time, with your help, you taught me how to, you
Honor.
know, you taught me how to use the Mapacho and connect with the spirit. We practiced outside of your tambo. I was able to heal that relationship, and I was doing it before a ceremony, and I did feel more grounded and protected going into ceremony.
That's awesome. And now that I'm thinking about it too, so I too had some concerns. I never in a million years thought I would ever be smoking a tobacco related product. I mean, the
Mm.
universe continues to surprise me. But I felt very called to it when I went to my first trip to Peru, and have been smoking it since. I got just fascinated with it and wanting to learn about it. But I did also still have some concerns about my health. Like I try to do so much to take care of myself. I didn't want to mess that up. And one night I had a dream where I was in like a doctor's office, and this woman, I was lying on a bed. There was a woman next to me who also had gone to Peru with me. She was also on a medical table. We had white sheets over us, and a nurse came in and she was smoking a cigarette. And I was like, well, at least I'm not smoking cigarettes, because Mapacho doesn't have chemicals in it.
Right.
It's pure. And she had her hand over her mouth and she was whispering. And so
Huh.
I was like, oh, darn, she has some bad news that she wants to tell me.
Mm-hmm.
And she did that. It sounded like bison. And I said,
Mm.
is it cancer? And she said, no. And then she got down and she went to the side of my bed, bent down, did the same thing, whispering. And it's all I could hear was bison. And I woke up with a start with bison. So
Huh.
I went to my animal spirits book and I looked at bison. And the second sentence said, uh, there was this woman who went to the Lakota people and brought them the sacred peace pipe.
Mm.
I was like, oh, right. So like, if you're doing it in sacred fashion, that's different. Well, then because my internet was out, I would not have left the house that day. But because my internet was out, I went to this cafe to get internet. I walk in the door and I see this buffalo head on the wall. And I went to the counter and asked if I could speak to the artist. And they said, oh, she'll be back in 3 minutes. So anyways, long story short, I ended up buying that bison head and I have it in my living room. But I also bought this one there.
Yeah, I see that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Is that a,
And
is that a sketch or a painting?
it's a painting.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the crazy thing was that after I had my morning beverage there, I went outside to take a few hits of Mapacho. And I thought, there's this thing nowadays called turbo cancer. And I'm just going to look up bison cancer just to just be sure that I'm not misunderstanding things. And it said that bison are the only animal that does not get cancer.
Mm.
I thought, oh
Yeah.
my. That is amazing.
That is amazing.
And then I went to my
Cool.
friend's house after that to use their internet. And I was on with my son and I said, "Oh, what you got going on this weekend?" And he said, "Oh, well, his girlfriend and he were thinking about going and getting tattoos because
Hmm.
there's a renowned tattoo artist in town." And I said, "What are you thinking of getting?" And of course, it was a bison buffalo. So, anyways, just to say too, like for me, having these three different bison now that I've purchased, one outside, one in the living room, and one of my, I feel protection from that too. So, the animal spirits can come and provide protection as well.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Mhm.
Okay. I think the only thing I have to add to that is in terms of the soplada or soplado and the soplad, mapacho or tobacco is deemed a master plant.
It's the master
And
of all master
it's
plants.
a master of all master plants, because it can't be tamed, it's wild. So working with the spirit of tobacco or mapacho is supposed to be very powerful.
And it's also the master of all master plants because it helps the other master plants do their work.
Hmm.
So like when
Yeah.
we were dieting Noya Rao, by working with Mapacho also supports Noya Rao to confirm
Yeah,
its.
that's such an interesting concept. I was reading this article the other day where it was saying that the spirits in general crave some sort of offering and energy, and mapacho, that smoke feeds them, so by smoking it. And I think that explains why in ceremony, the maestro, Don Miguel and the other facilitators, they're always smoking it and they're encouraging us to smoke it. And I've been in some ceremonies where the Maloka is just completely just full of just mapacho smoke.
No, it's a good point, right? Yes, at the beginning of ceremony, I mean, it's just kind of that ritual that I demonstrated. All the
Yeah.
shamans always do that. And if somebody's really struggling, even if it's with a vomitivo, right? If someone's really struggling in whatever way, the shaman or angel guides will come over and blow mapacho over them to help clear the negative energies.
Yeah. So that's clearing negative energies. That's a form of protection. There's some moments where I was struggling in ceremony and I wanted to purge and I couldn't get the purge out. Elio would walk over, he would blow the mapacho smoke into my head. And as soon as he did that, it just would all come out. It would shoot out of my body. And I'm like, what is going on here? That is so crazy. So
Yeah,
yeah, such
powerful.
a powerful plant.
Mhm.
Okay. I think that's, a good overview of Soplad and the use of Mapacho. What we have next on our list is Palo Santo.
Mm, there's a piece.
Yep. There you go. Do you want to kick that off?
Well, it smells wonderful for one thing. But yeah, burning it. And when we were in, you could use just a single piece like this. You can even buy little preformed pieces of Palo Santo and just burn it and uh, take it throughout the house, open up windows and bless all the houses all the rooms in the house to clear energy. In ceremony, we had a big bucket of it. So it was like lots of smoke, right?
Yeah.
We would one by one go to this Palo Santo and basically kind of like I did with the Mapacho, put one foot over it, the other foot over it, fan it over you, over your head. Um, that's a form of protection.
Yeah, and cleansing too. I
Mhm.
felt really cleansed every time. I would like lift my shirt open and get it in underneath my shirt,
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
back, and
Mhm.
lift my feet to make sure I got underneath my feet. And I would definitely feel much more protected
Mhm.
after using that in ceremony. And like you said, it smells so good.
Yeah,
I bought this Palo Santo spray from online, and before I go to bed, I'll just
nice.
spray it over my bed to clear the air. because not everybody is good with smoke. I don't think my partner would be cool with me lighting a Palo Santo before we go to bed, but that spray works so well. And I'm sure Palo Santo has its own spirit,
Yeah.
that we can connect to. I don't know if one could actually diet Palo Santo, but maybe just perhaps the act of just burning it and using it is our way of connecting with that particular powerful protective plant spirit.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really lovely.
Yeah, yeah. And then next on our list is sage. I want to say sage is used the same way. I've seen it used in very similar ways. And I used to assist in a particular plant medicine church here, and my job was to sage everybody that came in through the door.
Mhm.
So I'd have my little bowl and the sage, and I'd have them, put their arms out, and I would sage, from the top, the crown, their arms outstretched underneath their arms, all the way down to their feet. And I would have them lift their feet and then have them turn around and sage them from the back. And I've used saged before also for, let's say, during a ceremony at somebody's house where I'd sage all the rooms, and I'd sage the space, the living room where we were going to do the ceremony, just to make sure that that protection is there and to cleanse any of those dark energies.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is like the cleansing is part of the protection.
Yeah. I know sage is one of those things that is becoming more and more popular, and I think I've seen somewhere, I heard somewhere that it may be endangered, like it's one of those plants that may be overused. So I think we have to.
Well, people can plant sage in your own garden.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's one of those hardy plants. So if it is overused, it may be best to just plant our own sage
Mhm.
in the gardens and not have it be over harvested in the wild or wherever people get it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add to that, or?
No, I do the same thing. Like if I when I did my labyrinth gathering ceremony, I had somebody else sage everybody. Well, we saged the house, we saged around the backyard where the labyrinth is, and then as people were entering the labyrinth, everyone was saged as they entered. And it's also serves really nice for that recipient to just take a moment, ground in, recognize that they want to be present for this particular occasion
Yeah.
and what's about to happen right in front of them, and just bringing in presence too.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like doing these rituals, I think really brings people into the present and really prepares them for things like ceremony. It
Mhm.
changes the mindset as we do it. Yeah, it prepares us. Okay. Next one on our list, Icaros.
We love you, kiddos.
Yeah, we love
Take
Icaros.
that one, Rye. You're
Yeah, so Icaros are, what I understand to be, are magic sacred songs from lineages such as the Shipibo, and we can use these songs to call in the spirits. I know that Don Miguel, he had talked about his 6-step process of ceremony, and one of those was to call in the spirits into the space. And from my understanding, singing Ikaros is one way to do that. And if we analyze the words of some of the Ikaros that we did learn, for example, the one Rao ni webo, right? It's like Rao ni webo, no ya rao ri yospo, hoyo ni webo, hoyo ni webo. So Rao is plant medicine spirits. Niwebo, from my understanding, is clouds. But when we do say Noya Rao, we're calling in the spirit then of Noya Rao to help us during ceremony. So it's almost like calling the Noya Rao tree, the tree of light, into the space to help us in that ceremony. And I found myself after learning that from Don Miguel, I'm consciously doing that more in the ceremonies that I'm leading, you know. And I thought it was interesting how when he explained it to us, he was positioning his different guides and protectors around the Maloka. And I wonder if the Ikaros, help to, like, how does he just use his mind to position them? Because and when does he call those other spirits through those Ikaros? Because when I hear him saying it is mostly know you're out, but he must have other spirits.
And usually the shaman will rotate amongst the different participants so that there's
Mm,
a time in which the shaman is right in front of each participant. And then depending upon that participant's issues, needs, desires, like if that participant needed protection in some certain way, then that would call up a particular Ikudo
yeah,
for
yeah,
that person. And then, really, almost always, especially if you're doing multiple ceremonies, the last one is the protective ceremony to protect all the participants with everything that they've learned
yeah,
and
that's right.
and to protect them as they go back out into the world. So that's the Arcana ceremony, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Everyone is cocooned in an Arcana for protection, and those Ikudo songs are different than the ones that are generally sung in ceremony. They are specifically for providing protection.
I heard that when he sang that during the last ceremony when he did the Arcana. I was like, oh, this is an Ikaro I've never heard him sing before. So it was a very specific one that he was using to weave that arcana into us.
Mm.
You know which Ikaro I did really love and enjoy was the one where we would call in the different plants. Ayahuasca sumara sunarayonti. And then we would just change the name of the plant at the beginning of the Ikaro. So we would call in ayahuasca, mapachito, marusa, bobenzana, chacrunita, all of the master plants. We were calling them in with that Ikaro, and it was just so fun to sing it with our group.
I
Yeah,
love that. Yes.
yeah, it was so special. So
Mm.
yeah, so Ikaros are very powerful. Do you have anything else to add to, the Ikaros?
No, I think that's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so next on our list we have angels and guides, which I think is a good segue from the Ikaros. So Lisa, do you want to, talk to that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, on one level, I will often pray to Archangel Michael because he is an archangel of protection. So I'll mostly pray to him if it's issues around travel safety, like if I'm going to be traveling, flying, driving, or my children, I will ask Archangel Michael to help protect the travel and keep things safe. Um, but I also have a personal story that really impacted me and that I feel has a lot of application for probably all of our viewers. Um, so I got my period like most young girls do, somewhere around age 16. But then in my early 20s, I stopped getting it. It's called amenorrhea, like the lack of menstruation. And this bothered me. I was engaged at the time, and my mother even said to my fiance, like, well, you do understand that Lisa might not be able to have children. And he said he understood, but that we loved each other, we would work with it. Well, at the time, I was getting my master's degree in public health nutrition at UC Berkeley, but I would go across the street to the Graduate Theological Union just to kind of take classes in spirituality because I love that. And one of the classes I took was called Prayer and Human Wholeness. And it was really about this relationship between health and spirituality. we were required to have 2 sessions with our professor, which were really kind of like counseling sessions almost. And so I told her that I didn't get my period and that it made me feel less than fully female. I was concerned that I wasn't going to be able to have children. I had gone to the doctors and all my lab values were normal. I didn't overexercise. I didn't undereat. There wasn't anything to really medically explain what was going on. So she was aware of that. And then also in our conversations, I shared with her about my dream life. And I told her this one story about how I had woken up one morning in a complete panic, like shaking. And I mean, I was a wreck. And my then husband would say, honey, don't worry about it. It was a dream. It was just a dream. And I'm like, no, 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 you don't understand. You don't understand. So for about 2 hours, I was shaking. And then I got a phone call from one of my old college roommates from undergrad. And she said that she had some bad news. Well, okay, so let me back up a little bit. So the dream was that I was raped by a tall man with a knife. And I was saying, you know, you can rape me, just don't kill me, because I was fearing for my life. Well, then I get this phone call 2 hours after waking up from the dream. And my roommate said that she had some bad news, that our other roommate, who I hadn't seen in 4 years, was attacked that morning by a tall man with a knife, and she was raped.
Wow.
And so I was sharing this story with the professor. And so she took all this in together, my health issues and the dream life, and she said, stand up. So I stood up and she said, whoa. And I said, what? And she said, you have really big angel wings. And I said, oh, I didn't know I had angel wings at all. And she got really stern with me, pointing the finger, the whole deal. And she's like, well, you do. And you need to use those wings to protect yourself. And at night, you can say, tonight, my dreams are just for me. So I was like, okay. So I left her office. I put on my backpack. It's about a 30-minute walk from campus to where I lived at the time. By the time I got to my little cottage, I'm fiddling with the key because I had to go to the bathroom, and I run into the bathroom. And what do you think happened?
You got your period or
My period. After
amazing.
after years of not getting it, I got my period.
Yeah.
And you know, I called her up. I'm like, oh my gosh, you would never believe what happened. But she, you know, she was older than I was at the time and been in this spiritual healing world. And it was kind of like not a big deal to her, like it happens all the time. This is the way it works.
Yeah.
But for me, it was so profound. And what I took away from that was that when you are intuitive and you tap into dreams like that, and we're all intuitive, you're intuitive, right? Like, because we all have those masculine and female energies within us, and intuition is a very feminine energy. But when you're very open, intuitive, you can pick up on all kinds of outside energies. I mean, they're coming at us all the time, right? So that intuitive part of myself, that feminine part, was being drained by
Hmm.
so receptive to other people's lives within my dreams and whatnot, that my menstrual cycle suffered. There just wasn't enough energy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this example of just immediately like using my angel wings to reserve my own energy allowed the menstrual cycle to start flowing again. And I never had a problem after that. I had children easily. And so I think for all of us, as we go out into the world, being intuitives, empaths, whatever you want to call it, it's important to protect ourselves, whether it's with the mapacho or this idea of the angel wings. We'll talk about other kinds of shielding, but just to reserve our own energy, because what good are we if we're drained, right? And
Yeah.
it can make us sick. I mean, it can literally make us unwell. And so we have to protect ourselves so that we're not constantly absorbing all the energies around us.
Yeah. Wow. What an amazing story. I mean, there's so many layers to that story. Just listening to it, I was thinking, I mean, the dream itself and the intuition that came along with that could have been a form of protection in itself. because you had that scary dream, and then later on it happened to your friend. But what if, you might have been able to communicate that, to your friend before, maybe things might have been different. And then the whole thing with the angel wings, did the dream trigger the growth of the angel wings, or were your angel wings always there? What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. But you're also making me realize too, I don't know if I'd thought about it before, but while it doesn't change what happened to my friend, right? The mere fact that spirit used me to tap into that is what led me to this understanding of protecting myself with the angel.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have
Yeah.
never gone there had there not been such a profound dream for me to share at the right time with the right professor to
Yeah.
enlighten. I don't know about before. I don't know for sure. I mean, the way she said it kind of implied that I had already had the angel wings.
Okay.
From
Okay.
what I
Yeah.
understand, this is my last pass on this planet. Like I'm a
Got
life
it.
on, so this is kind of it. So maybe I do have angel wings by now. But I do know that after that, I did work a lot with this concept, and I studied about angels more deeply through my Old Testament studies and all. Um, and even for me, though, I have to remember sometimes to use those angel wings as I go out in life. But I have shared that, and other people, have started using it for their benefit as well. It makes a difference.
Yeah, I think that's great. I had gotten my angel wings a few years ago, and I didn't know what to do with them. They just, during one really strong plant medicine ceremony, they were revealed to me. And I just honestly, for the longest time, I thought they were decorative, and
Mm,
it wasn't until I healing retreats with our friends, our colleagues, where they started getting their wings and they started talking about, oh, and then I was wrapping, the person next to me, I was wrapping her with my wings as a form of protection, and then I started getting these visions during ceremony where, I could see everybody's wings and they were coming out of their backs, and it felt really protected in that space. So I really do feel like the concept of angel wings and angels in general is so powerful.
yeah,
And I had read online that Archangel Michael is the angel for protection. He's the one that you want to connect with if you want to clear any negative energies out of a space.
yeah. He's very powerful. I
Yeah.
would encourage people to get to know him and
Yeah.
utilize him. Yes,
Very
very.
powerful. And in addition to angels, on our list we have guides. I work with my own guides. They're not all necessarily angels in the form that they have wings, but they're powerful in their own rights. And I do call in my own guides to help protect me and guide me on my journeys during things like shamanic initiation training or plant medicine ceremonies. And when I first started doing shamanism in 2014, just doing these meditations of going to the upper world and then going down to the lower world and connecting with my guides, there's a part of me that thought, okay, well, this could just be a meditation or it could be real. I wasn't quite sure. I was sort of on the fence about it. But when I first did my the first Aya ceremony in Peru, and my guide showed up during ceremony, especially when I was having a tough time, I knew for a fact that they were real, and it completely changed my worldview. And since then, I've felt their protective presence with me during ceremony. Like let's say I'm having a tough time. That time in the jungle, we were all together. I was like puking and purging all this stuff. I had called in my guides, and I felt them just put their hands on my back and really give me that support and the protection I needed in that moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, very, very powerful energies there. Do you have anything else to add to angels and guides?
No, just like you said, like they could be very personal too. Like there's Archangel Michael available for all of us, but then for me, like the bison energy, they could be animal spirits, they can be even ancestors. Like, my father was very protective, and I
Yeah.
will turn to him sometimes like, Dad, can you overwatch me as I do this or that, or my children? Um,
Yeah. Great. Beautiful. Next on the list is circle of light or energetic bubbles, I guess, around us. Do you want to kick that off?
sure. So I feel like that's similar to the idea of the angel wings, that you have something surrounding you that's holding your energy safe and providing like a shield. It's also a technique that therapists, I hope, are taught to use. I think depending probably upon the program, but because again, a therapist, they could take home all the energies of their clients. So it's really important for them to be able to have their own protection as they're working with somebody. But the light, we did this in Peru too, but where you're just sitting with your feet on the ground. Ideally, you would be barefoot and touching the land, or and then feeling the light coming up from the core of the earth into the bottom of your feet. And then, the slower you can take it, I think is helpful. And just feeling that light infuse every cell in your body as it goes up through your feet, your ankles, your shins, your knees, your thighs, and then through the chakras, the first chakra, elevating through the heart out to your fingertips, and then raising up throat chakra, third eye, crown chakra. And then you can extend the light back up, and so that you have like almost just this continuous flow of light through your body. And then you can sense that light being so full within you that it starts to surround you, and even like a 3-foot shield of light, like orb of light that's surrounding you. You could extend it to 5 feet. You can go on and spread the light across the planet to people you love. But if you do that, then also bringing the light back to,
Hmm.
distance around you, so that you have this light orb. And then from there, going into your life, and just as you're walking, just feeling and sensing this protection of light around you as you go forward.
Yeah, I love that. That's so beautiful. I was watching this one talk with Greg Braden, and he was talking about the chakra and the auras, and he was talking about how we all have auras that extend maybe around 3 feet. I hope I got that right. Around 3 feet away from our bodies, and that is what protects us, along those same lines. So I think visualizing that light, coming up from our feet up into our body, out, that maybe it reinforces our auras, and maybe that's where the protection comes from. I was reading another starseed book, and they were talking about how, let's say you have surgery, you know, somebody cuts into you. If somebody cuts into your body, the book was saying that they actually cut into your aura first. So after surgery, it's important to try to strengthen your aura and your protection, so then you don't have any open holes in that protective light field around us,
Hmm.
letting anything in. So I thought that was a very interesting concept.
That is interesting. And I also just really like that, spirit is always available to us. But when you do an exercise like that, where you're basically inviting, requesting, but inviting source to fill you with the light, it becomes a co-creative relationship,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Where you're doing the invitation and then source is responding. And I just feel that source enjoys, like there's that feeling part of source that really wants to be invited in.
Hmm.
where it's like it's pleasurable to be asked to assist.
Yeah.
And I think it creates a very different, stronger energy than if we just kind of like don't do those things and just go out and go, oh, well, the source is out there who will protect us. I
Yeah.
mean, reading the words of saying it, I could feel just so much more powerful
Hmm.
to invite that presence, to invite that protection. It,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. I've been doing like a light protective exercise for years now, even before I started doing ceremony. And I found that it does help, and it does put my mind at ease. I'll do all kinds. I know this podcast in particular is about protection, and yeah, I'll do all different types of protection, layers of protection,
Mhm.
to protect myself or feel safe before going into ceremony. So yeah, and light definitely is a powerful one.
Mhm.
Okay, next one, last on our list. It looks like talismans
Mhm.
or trinkets. For me in particular, I used to wear onyx because I heard onyx was a really good. Is it onyx? No, sorry, not onyx. Obsidian. I heard obsidian is a really good crystal or stone to help absorb energies or deflect them and not actually absorb them into my own body.
Mhm.
And I mentioned before that I used to assist in certain plant medicine ceremonies. And there's this one very powerful earth medicine. It was Bufo. I used to assist in these Bufo ceremonies, playing music, and I noticed that when I was there, just being around people, being the guy that saged them. At some point at the very beginning of ceremony, I would start to feel sick. And I would just start purging and throwing up without taking any medicine. I was just there to play music and help hold space. And the person leading it, she said, "Oh, Rai, you're not used to the energy work yet. You're taking on too much of the dense energies from the participants. You need to find a way to strengthen your field and your energy in order to not feel sick all the time, and eventually you'll get used to it." So I was trying different, talismans. I had my obsidian, and that was working pretty well, but I was already wearing that, so it wasn't strong enough. Then I was talking to a person at work who she's a psychic, and she was saying that for the longest time she was attuning to the different anxieties and the way that people were feeling in the office, the anger and the sadness, and she would start to feel a certain way at the end of the day. So she started wearing this special technology, tensor rings is what she called it. And she said ever since then, it was almost like this automatic protection around her. And that was her talisman that she used to protect herself. And I don't know that these things work for everybody. Maybe you need to, be a certain frequency or really believe in it for the talisman to work. But I eventually got one. I'm wearing it right now, actually, around my neck, and it's just like these rings, copper coils that are coiled around, and they're supposed to create a torus around your energy field. And ever since then, in those ceremonies, I never pick up energies anymore from people. I don't know if it's my belief, working in concert with this talisman, as I like to call it. But for me, it works, and maybe that's all that matters. It protects me, and I don't get sick anymore off of people's energies. I don't purge people's energies anymore, and I really do feel like some of these talismans do work,
Mhm.
and they can be very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I haven't worked a whole lot with talismans. Um, I would like to do more so with this,
Yeah.
particularly with crystals and all, but I do feel that it's just as all of us have our unique gifts, talents, and skills, I do believe that there are certain spirits like Archangel Michael or the ones that you just talked about that do have like a specialty for protection.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there are
absolutely.
ones. And then I do think that like so much of it is the intention of I am wearing this for that purpose,
Yeah.
really feeling it and again, that's inviting in that spirit, that energy to do its work. And so very, very powerful. Yeah.
I, and building on that, I have seen though that for example, I'll give people one of these talismans, and because they don't believe, like they think it's all woo woo, it doesn't work for them. Like they don't feel the energy, or maybe that field of disbelief that they're creating, negates the actual potential effects that they may benefit from
Hmm.
by wearing something like a talisman. I don't know, all questions to be explored.
Well, no,
So
there's a lot to it because if you think about like the placebo effect, it's not that the placebo sugar pill is effective in,
exactly.
it's because the person is applying their intention and
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that brings us to the end of our list for our podcast today. Are there any other protections that you want to add to that, Lisa?
not maybe so much spiritual, but it's just because I'm a nutritionist, because I mean, that's one of my trainings. It had also brought up for me just like I could go on, but about antioxidants and like from fruits and vegetables and really the whole idea is that you almost can't even take in too much, but it's about protection because those antioxidants are anti against oxidation in the body, which is what leads to all of our disease states.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's plant wisdom in another form that's providing protection for us. And of course, got to have a healthy body to support just about everything else. But yeah, it's just really powerful, this concept of protection.
Yeah.
And you know and it's so personal what we've discussed today. Like it's not about being in a gated community or whether you have weapons or that kind of protection. This is just all very personal, effective personal protection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And building off of that body concept, I've been thinking about that saying as above, so below. And when our spirit is strong, sometimes our body feels strong, but I'll also feel the same way. I found that if I do eat healthy, let's say I'm eating all organic foods or much more foods that are rich in antioxidants, like vegetables, and it strengthens my body. Energetically, I do feel stronger, and I do feel more protected
Because if you have
overall.
a weak, you're going to have a stronger immune system.
Yeah.
If you're not eating well and you have a weaker immune system, you can't protect yourself against those invaders, kind of like the angel wings. Like you just, you need something to protect yourself against these incoming energies that are not necessarily for our benefit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And even exercise. I found that exercising, running on the treadmill or running outside in nature or lifting weights after that workout, I'll feel not only physically stronger, but just energetically, I'll feel like nothing can touch me. And
Hmm.
maybe that itself is creating a protective bubble around me.
Hmm.
So it's a possibility.
Hmm.
Well, that brings us to the end of the podcast. Where can people find you?
You can find me at sacredexploration.com. My Instagram channel is underscore imperfectly vegan underscore. I kind of merge my stuff there, but sacredexploration.com is probably the most efficient route to reach me.
Okay, sounds good. And then if people want to find me and learn more about the various energetic slash shamanic services that I work through, or that I offer, you can find me at Risha, that's RISHA sanctuary.com, and we'll put all the links to those various sites in the description below.
Yeah.
So I thought this was a great podcast.
Oh,
Thank you, Lisa. And if you guys like the podcast, please feel free to hit that like button, subscribe, or if you want to continue the conversation, leave a comment below.
that's some good shamanic tonic, my friend.
Thanks, Lisa.
See you soon.
I'll see you later.